Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're returning to War in the Pacific Admirals Edition, our play-by-email game against XTRG. It is January 21st, 1942. The Japanese have launched an offensive into the South Pacific. Rabaul has fallen, but the Japanese are also driving south in New Caledonia and threatening to take that key base just off the coast of Australia. We are in the process of reinforcing various locations between New Caledonia and New Zealand, while also continuing to fortify what is left of the Fiji line out at Pago Pago and Fiji. Meanwhile, we have submarines converging on Truk, which is a key Japanese staging base in the area, and we think the Japanese carrier fleet is somewhere in the South Pacific, although we're not quite sure where, because we haven't seen them in a couple of turns. I was assuming it was in and around New Caledonia, but we haven't actually spotted anything the last few days. Granted, our recon plane situation is pretty sparse at the moment. My damaged battleships, I think, are actually already in the process of being upgraded, guys. So we've got some Japanese destroyers firing some depth charges at the American submarine Pollock. Some near misses rattling the sub. Looks like a little bit of damage, but not much, so the submarine survived, largely unscathed. I just heard something hit a mine, but we didn't get an alert, so that makes me... I got a sound effect of an explosion, which sounded like what I've heard before when submarines have hit mines. So I'm wondering if maybe a Japanese sub hit a mine, because I didn't get an alert down here on the lower corner that any of our subs hit a mine. So that would be pretty awesome if there was a mine hit there. Or something. I guess it could have been like a ship, too. But that's the only sound effect I've ever heard with that is a mine hit. Just seems like he sends his subs very far forward, so that would be the most likely thing to hit a mine. Unless he's launching an amphibious landing somewhere that we haven't seen yet. That's the one thing that kind of gives away the fog of war. When a ship sinks, you hear the blubbing noise of the ship sinking, regardless of if you actually are told in-game that the ship sank. And that can kind of ruin fog of war in battles. But then you also have some other things like that if you learn some of the sounds in the game, such as a mine strike, you can sort of get a sense of if something happened, even if the game doesn't tell you that it happened. And that kind of takes away the immersion of I think, anyway, of the game. Meanwhile, he's continuing to bomb Wencao. Looks like, I wonder if he's going for the runway, but we don't have any aircraft there. So I'm not sure if, he's not actually bombing the soldiers there. I suppose he could be going for the supply. I'm not sure how the airbase supply works, if the airbase supply translates into land unit supply or not. But he is bombing Wencao in any event, even though he knows we have no aircraft there, so I'm not sure to what purpose that is. Meanwhile, some of our aircraft are bombing some Japanese troops south of Wuchou. Yeah, but I mean, if it was one of my ships, no name, it would tell me down here, and it did not tell me anything, so it's got to be a Japanese something striking a mine. Hopefully it's a sub. Maybe it's the sub we badly damaged last turn. I thought we sank it, but I didn't get a combat report to that effect, so we badly damaged a Japanese sub off of Sumatra, potentially sank it. Maybe it, ran into Oosthaven and ran to a mine or something? I don't know. We do have some aerial ASW on the Fiji line for what it's worth. Lightfoot. Okay, we've got recon going on all over the place. Let's fast forward a little bit. Neuhauser, you weren't lying. This turn, this is actually the first time I played through the whole turn. Seems to be a pretty passive turn. Meanwhile, the Japanese are continuing to bombard troops near Wencao. Our troops don't seem to be taking too much damage from the Japanese bombardment. The main question is when he thinks he can overrun that 100th Chinese corps, because the other corps are largely, out of the fight already. But if he can attack the 100th Chinese corps, then that might be, if he thinks he can attack it, then that's when this fight will be over. You can see we lost a few casualties, one squad destroyed, nothing too much there. Bombardment attack at Changsha. We can see he has a huge force here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 divisions engineer regiment, a tank regiment, 2 more engineer regiments, 2 mixed brigades, another division that I missed counting originally. This is a huge Japanese force at Changsha that he's trying to bombard our own force, which is actually pretty strong as well. And it looks like we suffered a few more casualties than him, but not disastrously so. We lost 1 gun, 35 men versus 12 for him. He's only bombarding with a small portion of his force there, but we could see from the units involved that it's a much larger force than whatever he's bombarding with. He must only be bombarding us with the actual field artillery regiments, because it's only showing 1,600 men with 145 guns, and that is definitely not an accurate appraisal of the total number of men he has there based off of the attack values we saw. Good thing is I think we have level 4 defense there. Meanwhile, he's attacking just north of Singapore at Johor Bahru. 2 infantry battalions, an SNLF, a guard, and a regiment. We have a very weak force there, a couple of battalions, cavalry regiment. They were all in the process of moving back to Singapore anyway. So it's no surprise that he did take the base and drove us back. But we are now in the same situation we are in the Philippines, where the Commonwealth forces in Singapore have been driven back to their last line of defense. And the Japanese inflicted 1,100 casualties, 57 squads destroyed, 15 disabled, 87 non-combatants destroyed. That may come in 47 ground units or vehicles destroyed. That may be a bit of a pain in the ass, and hopefully didn't hurt us too much when it comes to the Battle of Singapore. We really don't have enough troops at Singapore. Meanwhile, you can see he is bombarding us at Nomaya. He has a tank regiment, 2 mortar battalions, an infantry regiment, 2 infantry regiments, a tank regiment, and 2 naval guard units. He can overrun us at his leisure here. The only question is going to be how aggressive he gets there. We've got a Australian brigade, an Australian battalion, an AA regiment, our coastal artillery regiment, Pioneer Company, and a New Caledonia detachment, but they're pretty much all militia. So these are weak forces here. You can see we lost 25 casualties in the bombardment attack. The main hope that we have here is that he sees that we have some level of fortifications, and that he sees that we have a lot of units there, and that maybe holds him off from attacking for a few more turns. Otherwise, Nomaya might fall very next turn. Allied shock attack near Pingxian. 1 Japanese infantry division, so you can remember here we had 1,000 attack value here, and we were just south of Changsha. We thought maybe he was trying to flank and cut us off, so we decided to use the 1,000 AV we had that were withdrawing from the eastern part of China, central eastern. They were near Nanqing before. They were retreating west across the river. He tried to intercept them by the looks of it here at Pinsang. We attacked with a force that fortunately was somewhat substantially larger than his own. 40,000 Chinese attacking 10,000 Japanese, and a very big success there. 4-1 Allied assault odds, 2,199 Japanese casualties. That is 55 squads destroyed, 99 non-combatant squads destroyed, 5 engineers, and 24 guns. That Japanese division was ravaged. In addition to some disabled units, we only suffered 2 squads destroyed, and that is a huge victory for us. I know the casualties are only 4-1, but we just made that division combat ineffective for a while. 153 squads between non-combatants and combatant squads destroyed, another 43 and 24 disabled. That's probably about half the division's strength temporarily destroyed, with about a quarter of it totally destroyed in terms of its combat value. So that is a very successful. It's also a very meaningful attack, because we attacked here south of Changsha, where we know he's making a big move, and now we could, if we got aggressive, decide to move this entire force north toward Changsha and try and attack this guy again. If we succeeded there, we would be threatening the rear of the Japanese advance on Changsha. It would put a large force of our own in a dangerous situation in open field against Japanese forces, exposed to Japanese attack, but it might pull some pressure off of Changsha if he feels like he has to peel forces away to protect his rear, and I'm inclined to do that. That's a very big success. That was very big. Also, from a victory point perspective, I believe you get 1 victory point per squad, combatant or non-combatant. So that would be 153. That's almost worth a battleship if you think about like what the Haruna was worth. If that's actually true, I need to go back and double check. But I believe the rules are for the Japanese or the Americans or British, 1 squad equals 1 VP. So that's a very big result. Can't get the 2nd Marine Division in yet, Lightfoot, because we've got one of the regiments that I just don't have the ability to commit to I don't have the political points to change its headquarters. There you can see Nomaya expanded its fortifications to level 3, so that is great. We got the fortifications up before he attacked. Hopefully the level 3 forts will allow our force, which is substantially smaller, to punch above its weight if he does decide to attack. Jack, it's hard to say who's winning. I mean, we're ahead in terms of victory points, but you know, it's 1942, so the Japanese are definitely advancing, and we're trying to delay them everywhere we can and inflict as much damage as we can while we wait for the while we wait for the American masses of reinforcements to start arriving. Meanwhile, it looks like we got a couple battleships that are coming on board, as well as some air units or some ground units arriving in the eastern U.S. So we'll have to see what all those headquarters are assigned to. Just kicked us out, so we'll go ahead and jump back in. Even the best laid plans are subject to change. Australia. I don't know what he means by that. Well, let's take a look here real quick. Pearl Harbor. Ships under repair. We've got... This guy says 1 day. Well, he's got a lot of damage. Destroyer Cunningham will be done in 1 day. Indianapolis 2 days. Portland 3 days. San Francisco 3 days. St. Louis 4 days. So I think in 4 days we will be ready for the carrier fleet to set sail toward whatever the next objective that we will assign to it. But I would like to get the components of the fleet up and ready, and for that. How are the carriers doing, by the way, in terms of aircraft? I know we had some of them that were a little bit low. We can see the Wildcats on board the Lexington, which I think we swapped out. They're Buffaloes. But you can see they're in the process of upgrading. They've only got 16 of them. Okay. Do we have any other Wildcats in here? No? Everything, the pool's totally drained? Alright, so we've got 16 there. We've got 27 here, 19 here, 27 here. Alright. 16, 27. So that's 43, 53, 62, 89 fighter aircraft in our potential carrier forces. That's not really very many. Do I have any Wildcats here that I could, like, downgrade, maybe? No. I probably could do that on the West Coast, right? Or East Coast. I think I've got some Wildcats here. Question is, would I want to do that? Like, why? How would that be an upgrade? That would not be an upgrade. That would definitely be a downgrade. We'll leave things as they are for now. How is that an upgrade? I don't understand that upgrade path. They would actually have more aircraft than they do now. Although they only need 18. F6F, that's not till what, 1943? I think that's when the F6F came online. I guess we can do that. Let's go ahead and upgrade to the Buffaloes. So then that drops the... Oh, it takes a couple days for the aircraft to show up in the pool. I think it does. So it's not an immediate thing. Okay. Takes a while for them to actually be transported into the pool. I think it's like a day or two. Okay. Kind of feel like maybe we want to pull some of these Airacobras out west and start throwing them on ships and moving them into the Pacific Islands as defensive fighter wings. Meanwhile, looks like all of our ships here have made sail. So we've got the 3,200 troops of the Marine Expeditionary Force we're sending to New Zealand at sea. I don't have any other transports yet at San Diego. I think we have some on the way. We're also loading up troops at Seattle, moving them to, Victoria, moving them to Seattle. The battleship in San Diego is repairing, I believe. Yeah, it's the Pennsylvania. She'll be there for another 5.5 months repairing. Meanwhile, we did get a few new battleships this turn in San Francisco. So we've got 2 repairing there, one for about 50 days, one for 121. But we got the New Mexico and the Mississippi, 2 22-knot battleships of the New Mexico class. Both of these guys have radar, so that'll be beneficial, both surface search and air radar. And they are upgraded, so we'll probably send them to Pearl. They don't make very good speed, unfortunately, but I think we'll send these guys to Pearl so they can join the main force there. We'll give them 2 submarine escort, or 2 destroyer escorts. We'll leave the other 2 in San Francisco for transporting merchants and other things like that. And we'll send these guys to Pearl, where they're going to be based out of. Pearl still has sufficient fuel, almost 500,000 fuel still sitting in Pearl. So let's go ahead and send the New Mexico and the Mississippi. Both of these units just arrived this turn. Meanwhile, we have 2 more battleships in Seattle. One is the British Warspite of the Queen Elizabeth class, I believe it was. Yes. And the other is a battleship of our own that's currently upgrading. It'll be ready in 2 days. The Colorado. She's getting her January 1942 upgrade and will be coming out of the docks with air search and surface search radars as well. She's of the Colorado class. So we will be moving both of those battleships to Pearl Harbor as soon as they are ready. And then we will have 4 new battleships in theater based out of Pearl Harbor. In addition to that, we have, I think, 1 battleship currently available at Pearl, the Nevada, the veteran of the Midway bombardment, which also saw one of our battleships get torpedoed, if you will, and took some damage. I guess since it's probably at least a week until any of these ships arrive at Pearl, we might as well switch the Nevada over to upgrade, and she will begin her 20-day upgrade period where she'll need to be repaired over a period of about 20 days to get its system damage back down. Yeah, I don't have really much in the way of corvettes to escort the battleships in San Francisco anyway. We could throw one in there. I think I have a few, actually. Yeah, we've got one here. Yes, set task force routing, meet task force. Meet that battleship task force, and then merge. You can refuel from the battleships. Okay, so that probably is about all that we need to do this turn in San Francisco or on the West Coast. We have a couple of units which are moving to San Diego via rail. I don't think any of them have arrived yet. No, it doesn't look like it. Meanwhile, we stripped all of our land forces out who were ready to be deployed. This field artillery battalion, we're going to strat move to San Diego. San Diego is sort of my base of choice to load troops up and get them into the Pacific. Just the one place that I send everybody who I can use. So we'll move them. But a bunch of other units show up this turn as well on the East Coast. I think they were mostly... These guys are all moving already, aren't they? Yeah. These guys are already moving to San Diego, but we got a few more units. The 754th Tank Battalion, which we're going to strat move also to San Diego. Seems like we have a lot of armored units. I would think those would be bound for the European theater. But, you know, it is what it is. We got 2 new construction regiments. None of these guys have supply. And then we've got some aviation brigades. Why can't I? Okay. As well as some AA. So let's go ahead and send these guys to San Diego along the railway there. We don't have the transports to move them anywhere. But it's going to take a few days anyway before any of them arrive. And these are different aviation units that we can set on islands and build air bases. Okay. So some units are finally starting to arrive that'll really be useful in us making sure that we continue to hold our position in the Pacific and make his advance more difficult. So we're starting to see, ever so slowly, American units arrive that might help to at least slow down, if not stop, his advance. The problem is we're probably still a month away before any of those troops are in position to actually do anything. All right, so all that's done. Thanks for the host there, Nomad. Okay, so, these ships... Did all of these guys arrive? Yeah, okay, let's disband some of these task forces, and let's make a new task force that's going to go to Cape Town, which is going to carry fuel. So let's go ahead and... Sorry, guys, I'm doing some logistics at this point, which I don't generally do on stream, but why not do a little bit of logistics on stream, huh? All right, so these guys... That's an AK. I want some AKLs. All right, so we're going to take these AKLs. We're going to take all these 12-knot AKs as well. I think the port capacity is over 100,000 tons. So we probably can just load all these guys up. All right, so we're going to load all of these guys up. They have 121,000 potential capacity in their holds, but we're not actually going to load them with that. We're going to load them with 60,000 fuel. The reason is you can transport fuel via cargo ships, but you only can carry about half as much fuel as you can cargo. And so we're going to load them up with fuel, and then what we're going to do is we're going to send them to Cape Town, which is obviously in South Africa, and they're going to move off map. This is going to be off map. I don't think I have to change anything here. They're just waiting for an off map assignment. And then once they are off map, we can actually flank speed them with no penalties. So they move at flank speed and they don't use fuel. So it's going to tell us they're using fuel here, but as soon as they move into the off map mode, they actually do not use fuel while they are moving across the off map. So we have, let's see here, these are Eastern. None of these guys are going to Cape Town? There's some other guys coming to Cape Town? Okay, so these guys were loaded at the U.S. eastern coast of the United States. Some of these guys, these AKLs, you can see they're only at about 50% of their total capacity. They are moving at flank speed for Cape Town. They're not carrying a ton of fuel, only about 6,000. But they are not using any of their fuel. You can see here they're still at 100% fuel. So the way the game works is it basically kind of assumes they're making pit stops along the way so that you don't have to worry about that. I also don't think they take system damage. This one does have one system damage, but I don't think off-map movements take system damage when it's from one off-map to another off-map. If it's from on-map to off-map, that's a different story. But if it's from off-map to off-map, I don't think that applies. Meanwhile, we've got some other ships here docked at Cape Town. Some of these cargo task forces are loading cargo, and they're going to be going to Rangoon. These guys are almost completely loaded, but we can't really... I don't think we can dock another task force quite yet. So we're going to disband some of these task forces that are here, and we're going to have them start carrying some supplies shortly. Meanwhile, we got a bunch of tankers that just showed up here as well, but we don't really have a ton of fuel for them to carry. So we're actually going to disband them too, and we will start transporting them as soon as these guys get off port. I think they should all be gone next turn. Everything else is pretty much loaded up. You can see here these guys are all carrying fuel to Rangoon. We have plenty of fuel in plenty of supply in Cape Town. We get quite a bit, but the fuel is you have to transport in. It's not a very efficient fuel transport. You don't get a ton of like spawned fuel there. Meanwhile, I guess this is logistics hour. We got these other guys loading up fuel, transporting to India. We've got a couple of task forces in India that are unloading. Actually, I guess they're unloading supply. Abadan has a fairly large amount of fuel. These guys need to dock. They'll load way faster if they dock. Why aren't you docked? Okay. We've got all these guys moving. We've got some cargo. We've got some troop transports moving back to Aden to pick up the Australian division, which just arrived there. Our carriers are just about to arrive, or our carrier, the Indomitable, and the Royal Sovereign are just about to arrive on map, I think next turn. they're on their way to Colombo. You can see here they're sort of off the off-map area, and they're just at the very beginning of the on-map area. These tankers are headed to Perth. These guys are refueling at Aden, and we've got a bunch of ships moving in and around here. I don't think there's a ton to do in India right now. We've already issued some orders for some troops to move around. These guys are unloading equipment at Chatang. We've already moved some units around to get new divisions and locations. All right, and so we've got these troops here that won their victory at the base of Ping Xian. And I think we're going to just start moving them north here. So we know this is an enemy division. We know we ravaged it and defeated it. And we know that the Japanese are making a serious push at Changsha. We also know that we are low on supply at Changsha and that we're continuing to get bombarded. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to set all units to march. All units to this op mode, which is move. Then we're going to go ahead and issue the order to move here, which is northeast of our most recent triumph. And then we're going to issue orders for all the units to follow. So all the units in this region are going to march north, 46 miles, northeast, and they're going to attack this Japanese division. Hopefully they will attack it so rapidly that XTRG won't have time to send forces to the south. And as soon as we take this base, he will only have supply through this main route. Now, it is true that the majority of his supply probably already comes through Wuchang, but frankly, with 1,000 assault value on his flank, he simply will not be able to avoid reacting to a large Chinese force on his flank, and he will have to dispatch some forces away from Changsha, thereby securing Changsha from threat of enemy advance, at least for the time being. Okay, we know that it doesn't look like they're really advancing anywhere in China right now other than on Changsha and on Wengkao. We also know there's this enemy unit here. He's probably trying to move in behind us, I would guess, to cut our supply. So I guess we'll have this corps fall back. I really wanted him to get here because that would link supplies back up. But I think actually Wengkao has resources, light industry. It might actually generate some of its own supply. I'm not sure. Meanwhile, still no advance on Bataan to this point. He's apparently planning on just starving our garrison out. That strategy may not work so well. We still have over 50,000 supply. We just dropped another 300 supply from Baswanga. We've got another 1,000 supply on the way from Tarkin. Obviously, once he takes these bases in sort of the southern area of the Philippines, he will close that supply route eventually. But in the meantime, every one of our transports that does arrive and brings more supply here is just extending the amount of time that he's going to have a couple of divisions sort of watching over us. And we know he still does. He's got 14 units, 51,000 troops, 253 attack vehicles, 361 guns. That's a considerable force to just watch our troops in Bataan. And those troops could be doing other things like helping his drive in the South Pacific, but at the moment they're not. So that's, I think, valuable that we're holding them in place. Meanwhile, if we move over to Singapore, we can see Johor Bahru fell last turn, and that means our troops have been boxed back into Singapore. All of our troops are switched over to combat. We've got about 1,000 assault value. We've got two divisions, the 11th and the 9th Indian divisions, and then we've got a couple of Australian infantry brigades, not all of the elements to form a division. We have some units that are located elsewhere. The Lark Battalion, for example, is located down here near New Guinea, and some troops in Kandari. So these guys are kind of all over. But, yeah, so we don't have all the units we need in place to form those Australian units into a division. But we've got a lot of engineers. We've got a lot of units. Now, we're going to lose a shit ton of victory points when they all do surrender. That is going to hurt. But hopefully with 49,000 supply, we can hang out here for a little while. We've got level 3 forts. We're working on level 4 forts. We've got 217 engineers, 23 engineer vehicles, all working on that. Meanwhile, our air units here over Singapore, not insignificant. We've got 90 fighter aircraft, 79 are ready. Of those aircraft, we've got 15 Hurricane 2B tropes. We've got 26 Buffalo 1s. Actually, we've got another 6 Hurricane tropes down here. So we've got 21 Hurricanes, we've got 26 Buffaloes, we've got 25 Warhawks P-40s, and 7 H-81A3s, which are also a variant of the Warhawk. I think I've got some additional aircraft over here at Swing Kang. Yep, so we got 2 more of these guys ready to transfer over. We're going to go ahead and do that. Switch them over to Singapore. So that increases the air wing there. Still some damage back here. Hurricanes aren't ready to move. Okay. So, let's see here. Did any of these units... Like this guy's... His other unit is Swing Kang in Palembang. I don't know why I would transfer him to Swing Kang. Yeah, like we've got some bombers here, which I kind of like the idea of leaving some aircraft in range so when he does move on Singapore, that we'll be able to kind of hang on there. I think for this turn, we'll leave our units stood down at Singapore. I don't know. I'm kind of torn here because obviously if he does run a intercept over or a bombing raid over Singapore, he could launch... the fall of Johor Bahru, he would certainly be well advised to launch a bombing raid on Singapore. We might surprise him with the Hurricanes, but we don't have enough of them. But I think we will. Let's set the cap as strong as we can this turn. We'll set it to 90%. We'll set all fighters to 90%. The Hurricane can move up to 20,000 feet. It's still pretty at good maneuverability. So we'll do that. So we'll do the Hurricanes at 20. The Buffaloes will stay, we'll say at 12, because I'm guessing his bombers will come in at 12 to 15. Keep these Hurricanes at 20. The, what are these? Are these fighters? No, they're recon. So I guess I might as well recon the enemy, see what they have there. Although I guess we kind of already know. Meanwhile, let's go ahead and do some ground attacks over his troops just to keep them up at night. Give them a little bit of fatigue. These guys aren't worth much of anything anyway. Meanwhile, the P-40s are probably 15,000 feet, I would guess, would be ideal for them. Yeah, they get a huge penalty, anything above 15. So we'll set these guys to 15, kind of in between. Same for these guys. Should give them the ability to dive on the bombers without getting hurt too bad. And these Buffaloes should really be at like 12. So we're at 12, 15, and 20,000 feet is the staggered cap we have set up over Singapore. It'll be a very strong cap for this one turn in any event. Those Buffaloes are still down there. And I guess, I don't know. I think I'm going to leave the Dutch fighters to rest and recuperate. We've got 14 of them ready. Trying to get the rest of the squadron ready, and we've got a few at Palembang as well. But I'd rather let them get rested up. We'll transfer these guys north here to Dumabi, and we'll have them stand down. So that'll give us more fighters that are ready to intercept when the time comes. Okay, so we're ready for a second round with some Dutch fighters, about 23 of them, which will reinforce any losses that we suffer. So we should at least have a 2-day large-scale battle over Singapore for air units. Meanwhile, in terms of victory points, you can see here, obviously, we're ahead, but once we start losing some of these ground units, that's going to change a little bit. As some of these bases start falling. Last turn, in terms of air units lost, it looks like we lost 4 Kingfishers, which I think were all at Johor Bahru. He lost 2 Nates, 1 Topsy, 1 Tina. We lost 1 Catalina, an ops loss. In terms of ships sunk last turn, nothing. Last month, like, what have we sunk of his? Not a ton. All dates, I guess. Lightfoot, thank you very much for the bits. We're still claiming the Congo, huh? Well, maybe we got lucky, but I doubt it. Same for the Maya. We put 1 torpedo into her, but I don't think she sank. The light cruisers Kashmiria, Katori, I believe those. Meanwhile, it looks like 3 Japanese, 4. How many submarines are we claiming we've sunk? That seems like a lot. I mean, if we've really sunk, what, 10? Or sorry, 3, 6, 7 of his fleet subs, that would be great. Yeah, I don't know if that's true or not. In any event, okay, so let me take a look at the chat real quick. Lightfoot, we might get jumped by zeros from 25, but the hope is that if the Hurricanes get jumped, the Buffaloes and the Warhawks will not, and they'll go in on the bombers, even if the aircraft above them get jumped. But we'll see. How long do we think New Caledonia can hold? Honestly, if he attacks New Caledonia next turn, I think it may fall. We saw Comac fold like a wet blanket. So, these are not good troops. They're almost all, I think all of them are militia, with the exception of maybe the 39th Australian Battalion has regular infantry. The rest of these guys are all militia troops. So they're kind of a paper tiger. Their 177 AV is not terribly reflective of their actual capabilities. I do think they will fold. The one advantage we did have is we did just expand the fortifications to level 3 this very last turn. So maybe that helps. Maybe that turns the tide if he decides to attack. I'm not sure, but we'll know soon enough. What's this over here? Moving east. Could that be the Kirubutai? Not sure. Meanwhile, so we were looking at Singapore and the air units there. I think we scroll down. Let's take a look at Oosthaven. Loading fuel. We've got 19,000 of 26,000 loaded up on these tankers. They'll be heading to Perth before long. Have I given the order to move to Perth yet? I haven't, so we're going to go ahead and move them to Perth as soon as they're done loading. Some of them are light oilers and can't reach, but the other ships should be able to give them enough fuel to make it. So we've got the oiler Trinity, 2 Dutch oilers, which are very small, very short-ranged, and then we've got the tanker Peak, as well as 2 destroyers. These AVs are headed for Perth, but it doesn't look like they're going to make it. So let's actually do this instead. Let's meet this task force. These light oilers can refuel them, and then these guys will just merge with them. So that's going to be a very well-escorted convoy. 28,000 fuel headed back to Perth. This tanker here is slowly trying to make it back to Cape Town. Its damage is going up a little bit. It's also got some engine damage. These guys are headed for Cape Town. We've got our carrier here, the Hermes. We've got a surface task force in the general vicinity in the event he decides to make a dash for Java. We've got 44,000 fuel at Palembang. Only 16,000 fuel left at Oosthaven, so hopefully we can pull more of that fuel down from Palembang. Up to 381,000 oil at Palembang, though. That thing is just producing oil like none other. I can't stop the oil production, but I have stopped the refinery production. 12,000 fuel at Surabaya. 9,000 at Batavia. Do we have a tanker at Surabaya? I think it's a small one, right? The Angelina. Can we form a tanker task force? Just load a little bit of fuel up. Where are we sending it? Where can you get? Can you get to Perth? Can you get to Geraldtown? Almost. Let's just transfer something with a little bit longer range. Similar speed. The Pollux, maybe? Maybe that'll let you get there. Almost. Not quite. Yeah, whatever. We'll find something along the way. Why are you guys unloading supply here? I don't understand that. Well, I guess he's not on the mainland. All right. So meanwhile, in Kaigan here on the southern portion of the Philippines, we have a force here on Mindanao that has successfully repulsed a Japanese assault there and is hanging out for the time being and doing okay. So that's kind of, I think, the Dutch East Indies area, probably all we need to show today. Meanwhile, if we move down to the main theater of this battle, you can see here we've got some tankers moving north from, I think they just left Cairns. We've got, wait a minute. Oh, boy. Do you guys see what I'm seeing? These tankers have a 10 out of 10 detection. None of these bases do. These tankers don't. These guys have a 2 out of 10. These guys have no detection. What were they detected by? There's no subs in the area, nothing in Townsville. Rather not lose valuable British tankers and AOs. There's 3 tankers in a fleet oiler. I mean, it wouldn't be the end of the world if they got sunk, but it would be pretty painful. What is down? Is the WWII in the area? I don't think he has his air capacity at Tulagi is 0. He could have recon planes, but that, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Does he have any float planes that can even make it that far? Can we filter by range? Endure, I guess. H6K Mavens 4. That can move. Normal radius is 20 hexes. Extended is 25. So if they were flying out at absolutely maximum range, fuel tanks and everything stripped down, they can make 25 hexes, which means they could just barely hit Townsville. It's unlikely they'd get a 10 out of 10 detection on Townsville. That means there's something else in here that's detecting them that we haven't seen. If this is the WWII down here, it's too far away. There's got to be something in the Coral Sea. Something is in the Coral Sea with float planes or carrier planes. Fuck. Well, if it's 10 out of 10, it's probably too close for me to be able to escape. It's also probably much faster. Could be spotters from cruisers. I don't know what hit a mine. I just know we heard a mine explosion. I'm not sure what to do. We don't really have fighters at Townsville. I could send fighters up from Brisbane. I think they'd be heavily fatigued. I don't have recon in the area, not really. Got some whirlways, but those are short-ranged, short-legged. I don't know what to do, folks. None of these fighters have even remotely decent experience. If I do send them north, they're just going to get shot down in droves. The problem is with the replenishment that I get from my aircraft right now, I don't think putting aircraft into Townsville is better than nothing. It's just going to give them a bunch of free experience. I guess I could send one. Maybe the one with the most experience, the 20th Pursuit Squadron. Wait, are they going by rail? So they can't even get there in one move. Yeah, they can't get there in one turn. They'll arrive tomorrow because they're not flying. They're traveling by rail. So I can't even get them there this turn. I think one thing's for sure. We're going to send these guys out of here at flank. They're already at sea. Meanwhile, I don't have a lot of fuel to play with for these guys. I'm trying to see where they can get to that they might be able to refuel a little bit. Darwin's probably the closest. I don't think I have any fuel at... I do have some ships, though. They could steal fuel from ships in harbor at Port Moresby. I don't want these cruisers just to get sunk to no purpose. So they're going to flank move to Port Moresby. Meet task force. No, I don't want to do that. Let's cancel that. Let's set task force destination of Darwin. And let's meet task force here. Does it not let me do that? It does not let me do that. They're not a replenishment task force per se. Shit. I guess we'll just send them to Port Moresby. We'll take the extra day and the extra risk, I suppose. We won't even move them at full speed. There's not really any point for that. They should arrive in the day phase. So they're moving north. For these tankers, I don't really know what to do. Maybe we would do. I wonder if we put them in the port, will they not get bombed unless he bombs the port? Like, he might be reluctant to actually bomb the port. How much are these worth victory point wise? 19, 23. Jesus, these are worth a fair bit. Let's cancel unloading cargo. Form new. I'm going to scatter these guys as best as I can. So we're going to send British Destiny to Cairns. We're going to order them to auto-disband. I don't even want them to unload cargo. I just want them to set base to Cairns and move at flank speed. I'm trying to disperse these guys because there's got to be carriers around here if we've got a 10 out of 10 detection. Meanwhile, we're going to go ahead and transfer one of these guys into the port. Just hoping that he's not going to bomb the port. And then, do we dare send something south to Bowen? Let's go ahead and transfer ships from task force. Oh wait, no. Let's form a new task force. Tanker. And we'll move the oiler and the corvette to Bowen at flank speed. Do not unload cargo. And then auto disband. I need to switch the other guy then, actually, because I don't think I have the other guy. Yeah, auto disband. Okay, so dock. So British motorist may end up being killed. Thank you for the follow, RBX. Assuming he bombs us at Townsville. We've got one tanker in the port, and we're racing one to Cairns and one to Bowen. Hopefully in an effort to distract whatever he has. Let's also form a surface task force. Good luck, minesweepers. See if we can... how much of these aren't really worth much, are they? Maybe we can divert him. Thinking these are like cruisers or something. Or at least figure out what the hell's out here. Should probably pick like an aggressive as hell commander, right? Lieutenant Commander Flynn. In like Flynn. Aggression 65. His naval skills 42, which is the lowest, second lowest. So Percy has the second lowest naval score, but he is aggressive, and he has good inspiration and leadership. Very promising and aggressive Australian officer. I don't know if he's very promising. His naval skills are pretty low. His aggression skills encouraging, but I'm gonna do that. We'll see if we can move him out there. He's gonna die, but whatever. Meanwhile, do we have any other subs that we can scramble into the area? We do have the Sea Dragon, so go ahead and move a sub patrol out here. And move him up here. The other interesting aspect of this is if he is moving through the Coral Sea, he could also be moving against Port Moresby. He could just be moving back north to Rabaul and back to Truk. But again, if he's got recon over Townsville, to me that says he's got some intention of doing something. And the other alternative is he could move through these straits here and move toward the Dutch East Indies, although that would be a bold move indeed to move through such a narrow strait. I was going to move this cruiser mine layer in this direction, but I guess we'll find out what happens. How valuable is this? Not very. Maybe we move this guy at flank speed. He can't even get there? Wait, no. If we change his base to Port Moresby, he can get there, right? Yeah, just barely. He's going to be out of fuel, but the point is to get his mines there. Okay, so he might attract some enemy attention as well, if there really are enemy carriers in the area. There's got to be something. It's either carriers or cruisers. My money's on carriers, because why else would you have cruisers there? Okay. So Namaya we looked at. Unloading some cargo at Nadi. I think we're good on supply at Fiji. Pago Pago's fine. Replenishment task force should probably move back to Pearl to join the fleet there when they move. Get a couple of destroyers or something to join them. Task force routing should not be in that direction. Because that seems like you're asking for suicide pact. Why are you moving directly north like that? That's just... I mean, you're probably far enough out that you're safe. Where are you going? You guys are nuts. I don't understand why you're moving north like that. Like, what are you... Why are you not moving in that direction? He's not obeying my damn orders. What the fuck? Alright, I'm guessing he doesn't... I don't understand why he's moving in that direction. In that way. All right. Meanwhile, south near us, I guess we can be reasonably comfortable that the Japanese are not moving large-scale reinforcements or large-scale carriers down toward New Zealand. Suppose that's a good thing. Let's move this ASW group up toward Norfolk Island. He's got a sub there. Just doesn't make me happy. Let's move back to Seattle. Moving to Melbourne. Okay, these guys are all moving in. All right, so okay. Meanwhile, Perth has a lot of fuel currently being unloaded, about 40,000 or so from 3 different task forces, with more on the way. These guys are going back to Balikpapan. These guys going to Perth. Oosthaven, loaded at Oosthaven to Jalap. All right. So, maybe we should move 2 fighter wings north to Brisbane. I feel like I'm just going to get my P-40 shot to pieces. So I don't really want to do that. But I also don't want him just like thinking like, oh, all of Australia is undefended. So even if it means losing some fighters that are valuable, I think the lesson that like, oh, there's 50 fighters here, maybe I shouldn't be quite so cavalier with raiding the Australian coast, could come in handy, I guess. Naval search, they can't really reach out too far, only 6 hexes. But we'll set the naval search to 100 this next turn. I could probably move some, but with that being said, we are going to go ahead and wrap this one up. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you for watching, and I'm out.